We as human beings scale the highest of mountains and live in the harshest of deserts. But we all live precarious lives, don't we? Even if we lose access to simple things, we can't survive. So can you tell me what are these simple things without which we cannot survive? Anybody?
Water,
Food, water.
Food, shelter, water.
One at a time.
Shelter,
Reva is
water,
telling me.
food.
Okay.
Food, shelter, clothes, water.
Food, shelter, clothes, water. What else? Have you heard about the rule of threes?
Land.
Ma'am, internet.
Internet. Who's that? Chaitanya.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm talking about essentials without which you cannot survive, without which you cannot live. Like Reva rightly said, she talked about food, she talked about water. And Chaitanya, have you heard about the rule of threes without which you cannot survive?
No, ma'am.
No? Anybody else? Okay. So the rules of threes, like I'm sure when I tell you, you'd understand, realize we cannot survive more than 3 minutes without oxygen. You've heard of that?
yes,
We cannot survive more than 3 days without water, and we cannot survive more than 3 weeks without food, right? So that's the maximum extent without which you cannot stay with these essential, these are the things which are essential to live. That is oxygen, water, and food, right? Internet comes after you are alive, right, Chaitanya? So we're talking about these basic needs. And do you know about anybody who's fasted for 21 days? I'm sure you've studied
Anna.
history classes. It's about Mahatma Gandhi, who fasted about 21 days after the Quit India movement. You know why? Gandhiji actually undertook this 21-day fast in response to the Viceroy's insistence that the Indian National Congress was responsible for the disturbances in 1942. But Gandhiji did not want to admit to it, and because of which he fasted for 21 days. So that's the longest time anybody can fast. So we all know where we get water and oxygen from. But if I would like to ask you, what comes to your mind when you think about food? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Don't tell me that you remember your mom or you remember your kitchen thanks to COVID-19, but then think on a larger picture. What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Agriculture land.
Agricultural lands. Chaitanya straight there, right? So he thinks about the farmer, he thinks about agricultural land, right? So agriculture does give us food, but agriculture not only gives us food, it also gives us raw materials for various industries. So you might have heard about the textile industry, the sugar industry, right? All these industries, where do they get the raw materials from? Think about the textile industry. Nandita, where do we get raw materials for the textile industry? What are textiles? Okay, Ananya? Kanika?
cotton, wool.
Correct. Cotton, wool, all of this are agricultural products, is the animals or agriculture. So they provide raw materials to various different industries. So moreover, agricultural products are also being exported to different countries. If you remember that India was very famous for exporting spices from the olden days. And today India also exports tea and coffee. So it adds to the economy of a country to a great extent. So when we're talking about India now, we've known India is always an agriculturally important country. Remember when we were studying about population, we talked about the three major occupations, that is the primary sector, the secondary and the tertiary sector. And most of the Indians were in the primary sector. That is, they were dealing more with agriculture and agriculture related things. Yes. Yes, Reva, you want to say something?
No.
Okay. So 2/3 of the population of India is engaged in agriculture allied activities. So this agriculture to India is not only about providing food, so it's also a source of employment to most of the Indians, and it's a main source of livelihood. So I think these are reasons good enough why we need to study and know more about agriculture, because I was sure that Chaitanya or Ryan might be thinking, why do we need to study agriculture? So I wanted to clear out that first so that we get into the chapter. So we start with the lesson now. So today's lesson is about, we're going to start is about agriculture. So here is, okay, share. Can you see the PPT now? Kanika, can you see the PPT? Okay.
Ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Slideshow. Let me do a slideshow. Yeah. So we are going to study about agriculture. So when we are going to start with studying about agriculture, the first thing is that we need to know what the term agriculture means, right? So the term agriculture actually is been derived from a Latin word, ager meaning field and cultura meaning cultivation. So this is what the term agriculture actually means. But it's also a misnomer, a misconception to most of us that agriculture is just about cultivation of crops. It doesn't limit itself only to there. So it encompasses many more things, which as you as geography students should be knowing. See here. So in this slide, it will tell you about what all things agriculture actually consists of. It's not only about growing or harvesting of the crops, it deals even with the cultivation of soil or the soil management, which you can see here. It also is associated with growing and harvesting of vegetables, fruits, flowers, decorative plants, which we call horticulture, and breeding and raising of livestock, including poultry. That's what is animal husbandry. So all of this is a part of agriculture. So it's agriculture is not just only about growing crops. So we can define agriculture as a science that deals with the growth of both plants and animals. Basically, it's for the human use. Only then it's known as agriculture. So clear with the definition? Are you clear with the definition, children? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes,
Great.
ma'am.
So we move to the next thing. The next most important thing is that agriculture is not something which is very recent. So it is an age-old economic activity which has been practiced not only in India but in the most of the civilizations. You can see the growing of wheat and barley was about 10,000 years ago. So because of this agriculture and cultivation, what has come into being is that human beings started to settle down. They used to live a life of wandering, which they didn't do anymore. And they also started domesticating animals. So now they were able to have a sustained life. So this is a great revolution which has been brought about. And it's an age-old thing that's been happening. But then over the years, cultivation, just a moment. Okay. So agriculture is an age-old economic activity in our country, but over the years, cultivation methods have changed significantly. Can you hear me? Karika, can
Yes,
you
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
years, cultivation has actually changed significantly depending upon various different characters, like maybe on the physical environment, because of the various different technological developments which have happened in our country, and of course the socio-cultural practices. So there are different types of farming which are practiced in different parts of our country. Right. So now we're going to study about the different types of farming that's practiced in India. So these are the three different types of farming that are practiced in India. As you can see, it's primitive subsistence farming, intensive subsistence farming, and commercial farming. Now you go to the first type of farming, primitive subsistence farming. Now, as the name itself suggests many things about this farming. Now, primitive. What does primitive mean? What does primitive mean? Who will tell me?
Ma'am, ancient.
Right.
Ma'am, ancient.
Yeah, ancient or very basic early stages, which is not sophisticated in terms of convenience or in terms of efficiency. It's got a very low efficiency. That's what primitive means, like he rightly said. And subsistence, anybody knows what subsistence means? Subsistence actually, yes, who's telling me that?
Sustenance.
Yes,
Sustenance,
Sudesh.
ma'am.
Yes, Sudesh? I can't hear you.
Ma'am, sustaining.
Yes, for sustenance, that is for having what you need to stay alive. In simple terms, what you need to stay alive is what a subsistence is all about. So when you're talking about primitive subsistence farming, the type of farming itself tells you here that it is something which is very basic and which is done only to live a livelihood or to stay alive, to sustain a family or something like that. So let's learn more about this. As you can see in this slide, primitive subsistence, about the primitive subsistence farming. This type of farming is not very much practiced nowadays, but then a few places in India, we yet practice it in few pockets of India, maybe in the northeastern states like Assam, Meghalaya, Mizoram, and some coastal areas, this is yet practiced in the tribal areas. But primitive subsistence agriculture is actually always practiced on small patches of land. That's a very important characteristics of this kind of farming. And this kind of farming is usually associated with primitive tools like the dhow, the sticks. Actually, they plow the field by with the help of sticks, wooden sticks that they use. So the tools are hoes, dhows, and digging sticks. And who are the people who work on these fields? It is the family. The family itself or the community itself works on these farms to grow a crop. So this type of farming completely depends upon the monsoons and the natural fertility of the soil. And depending upon the environment, they grow a crop that is suitable according to the environment. So it has nothing to do with modern techniques of any modern inputs, be it fertilizers or irrigation facilities. No, nothing is used. So everything is natural. So what happens when everything is natural here? So the land productivity will not be as much. So the productivity of land is very minimal. So the farmer can actually cultivate only that much so that he can sustain his own family. So what happens is, this is also called as slash and burn farming. So if you can see here, it's known as slash and burn kind of agriculture. Why is it called so? So what they do, they clear a patch of land by slashing the vegetation, and then the slashed plants or trees are burned. And when they burn, the ash that is obtained because of this is mixed with the soil, and this acts as a natural fertilizer to the soil. So this type of farming produces just enough crops to sustain the family. So what happens, maybe after growing crops for 1 season or 2 seasons, the natural fertility of the soil depletes. So the amount of crop that is obtained becomes very less. So what they do is, after that, after 1 or 2 rotation of crops, they move to another patch of land. So when they reach to the another patch of land, they again clear the trees, they again clear the vegetation, burn, and start off again. So like this, they go on moving from one patch to the other patch. So maybe after moving from 2 more patches, they come back to the first patch, because by that time, it allows enough time for the earlier patch of land to replenish its fertility through a natural process completely. Right? So they come back to the first patch. So basically, when we're talking about primitive subsistence farming, you should remember that it is always done on small patches of land. The tools which are used are primitive, and the farming completely depends upon the monsoons and the natural fertility of the soil. So no modern techniques are used. So this is about primitive subsistence farming, and it is done basically to sustain the family. No profit involved, not to sell their product, nothing like that, right? And so the land productivity is very less over here. It's known as jhooming in most of the northeastern states like Assam, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland. So all these states, it is known as jhuming. So this is one more important factor you should remember, that the slash and burn kind of agriculture is being given different names in different regions, not only in our own country, but it's also known as different names throughout the world. In India, like I've just mentioned, it is known as jhuming in the eastern states. Similarly, it's known as Deepa in Andaman Nicobar Islands and Chhattisgarh. It's known as Penda in Andhra Pradesh. Similarly, if you see all around the world, it's got different names. You can see that it's been known as Milpa in Mexico, Conoco in Venezuela. It's known as Masol in Central Africa, Ray in Vietnam. So it's got different names. So these usually, the names usually come as short questions for your multiple choice or short questions in the examination. So you need to remember the names. So it's there in your text, but you need to jot them down and remember the names. So that's about primitive subsistence farming. Clear? Any doubts? Darshil wants to
No,
say
ma'am.
something? No? Right. So we move to the
Ma'am,
next. Who's that?
ma'am,
Nandita?
in the south of India, does this slash and burn practice?
It's most of the coastal, some parts of the coastal regions and in the northeastern regions. It's usually, now it's only in the tribal regions that it is practiced. It's not prevalently practiced throughout India nowadays. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
So now we go to the next kind of farming. That's the intensive subsistence farming, as you can see here. The term intensive, I'm sure you've heard about this term, intensive care units in the hospitals. Intensive is what? Intensive is involving a lot of effort. So, isn't it? Samarth wants to say something? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes, Samarth?
No, nothing happened.
Okay. So intensive, as the name itself suggests here, it's again, which is involving lot of effort. And again, it's subsistence here too, means to stay alive. That's what it means. So here, intensive subsistence farming, when we come to this kind of farming, this type of farming, you should remember that this kind of farming is practiced in areas where there is very high population. So here too, the land on which the cultivation is done is very small. It's small patches of land, but the population which is dependent upon this small patch of land is huge. So there's a lot of pressure on the land because they want to grow a lot more than the land can actually grow. So here, this type of farming is practiced in areas which has very high population and it's labor intensive. Why? Because lot many people work on a small patch of land to get more productivity. So now when they want more productivity, what they do, they use lots of biochemical inputs in it. They have good irrigation facilities which are there so that they can obtain a higher production. And you can there's one more important factor that you need to remember about intensive subsistence farming is that more than one crop is grown over a year. Maybe 2 or 3 crops are grown so that they get more produce and so that it can enable to feed more mouths, right? So why is the land size reducing over the period of time? Why is this problem actually coming up? I'm sure you might have heard about this right of inheritance. Amoga, do you know about this right of inheritance? Is Amoga there?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am, I'm there. So the basically right of inheritance is you inherit some property of your parents, like that.
Yeah, right. That's right. So what happens in this right of inheritance, like if your grandfather has a patch of land, he gives this to his sons or daughters. So it's divided among 2 of you. Then again, it is transferred. When it comes to the second generation, it is further divided. So what happens because of this right of inheritance, it is leading to the division of land amongst the successive generations. So it's in case of land which is coming from successive generations, the land holding size is becoming smaller. But then for the farmer, he has no other source of livelihood. He has no alternative. So the farmer continues to take maximum output from the limited land that he has. So that's why it is creating an enormous pressure on that piece of land. Okay. So these are the problems which are usually associated with intensive farming. So in this kind of farming, you should remember that this is practiced in areas of very high population. So it is labor intensive. Many people are into cultivating crops here. But here we use a lot of biochemical inputs like fertilizers, insecticides, pesticides. There's a provision of irrigation. So that maximum production can be obtained. So this kind of farming is about that. So the next kind of farming that we are going to study is commercial farming. As the name itself suggests, commercial. What does commercial mean, Nandita?
Ma'am, something which is done for public or
Public, social service. No, I'm talking about commercial.
no, like it's not done for agricultural purposes. It's done for like how do I explain?
How do I explain? Who can explain what's commercial?
Ma'am, it's done for money.
Yes, correct. So it is done to earn money, it is done for profit. As the name itself suggests, commercial is something which is for earning money, for earning profit. It is not to live a livelihood out of that. So that's the basic difference between the other two types of farming and commercial farming. If you can recollect, the other two types of farming is to sustain their families, only for feeding their own families or community. It has nothing to do with selling the crop. So here it is completely done for commercial purposes, that is for earning more profit, right? So the sole purpose is selling the farm produce. So there are various, in this kind of farming, the main characteristic is use of high doses of modern inputs, be it high yielding variety of seeds, chemical fertilizers, insecticides, pesticides. All of this is used so that they can obtain a very high productivity. But the degree of commercialization can vary from one place to the another. For example, rice is grown as a subsistence crop in Orissa, but it is grown as a commercial crop in Punjab and Haryana. So you cannot always classify a particular crop as a commercial crop or a subsistence crop. So it depends upon where it is grown and why it is being grown. So similarly, commercial farming, so it's basically is done for selling the farm produce. And here, unlike the other like primitive subsistence farming, your modern inputs are used not only in terms of seeds or fertilizers, insecticides, pesticides, but the technology used. Like you see in the picture, modern technology is used to get more produce. So there's one very important kind of commercial farming which is practiced in India is the plantation farming, as you can see here in the slide. And I'm sure as you all belong to Karnataka, you might be aware of Chikmagalur, where you grow a lot of these coffee plantations. Yes? Yeah. So Karnataka is very famous for the coffee plantations. Similarly, you've all heard about tea being very famous in Assam area because tea gardens you see in the Assam area. So there are many other crops also which are grown as in plantation cropping like tea, coffee, rubber, sugarcane, and banana. But then what is plantation crop? This type of crop is when a single kind of crop is grown over a large area. Okay, but here it is capital intensive. Like in the previous one, where we were talking about intensive subsistence farming, it was labor intensive. Here it is capital intensive, means you need a lot of capital, you need a lot of money to have such kind of plantations. And here too, you need large number of workers. Usually you see in all these plantation, wherever you have these plantation, you have these migrant workers working there because you need skilled labor here. Now, when we pluck tea leaves, you don't pluck the whole tree, right? So you need to be skilled enough to know which part of the plant you need to pluck. So here you require people who are skilled, workers who are skilled. So here it is both capital intensive as well as labor intensive. And now that we have discussed that it is basically for plantation farming is basically grown. Yes, Tahia? Okay. So as you've understood that plantation farming is for profit, it actually it actually acts as an interface between agriculture and industry, because most of the produce is moved on from the plantation farming to different industries. So when it has to be connected to different industries, we need to remember that a well-developed network of transport and communication is very essential so that the plantation can develop. There's proper development of these plantation. So that's even a very important criteria characteristics for in case of a plantation farming. That is a well-developed network of transport and communication connecting the plantation areas to the processing industries and to the markets. Because this is all about profit, earning a profit. So that's how it is quite different from the other two kinds of cropping systems that are practiced in India that we've talked about, right? So now, any doubts, children, about the types of farming that we've studied?
No, ma'am.
Yeah? Okay. Now that you're clear, Sudesh, can you tell me the difference between how you could differentiate between primitive and intensive subsistence farming? Where's Sudesh? Is Sudesh here? No?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Sudesh. Tell me the difference between primitive subsistence farming and intensive subsistence farming.
Ma'am, in primitive subsistence farming, there is mostly the use of primitive tools, and in intensive subsistence farming, there are use of modern tools and modern techniques.
Yeah?
Primitive subsistence farming is mostly using the method of slash and burn technique, and intensive subsistence farming is like the normal farming methods.
Yes?
And primitive subsistence farming is practiced in northeastern states and
States.
coastal regions.
And
And
here
in
it is in the northern plains. Yes.
states.
And there's one more important factor which Sudesh has missed is that its primitive subsistence farming is entirely dependent upon the monsoons and the natural fertility of the soil. So wherein here it is quite different in this case. And in the primitive subsistence farming, the land productivity or the crop that is obtained is quite less as compared to intensive subsistence farming. And there's one more important thing that we've discussed about the intensive subsistence farming is multiple cropping is done in case of intensive subsistence farming. More than one crop is grown in a year. As in comparison to the primitive subsistence farming, it's only one crop which is grown. Right? And then, Pranav, can you differentiate between subsistence farming and commercial farming? Where's Pranav?
I'm here.
Yeah. Tell me, Pranav, what's the difference between subsistence farming and commercial farming?
Ma'am, intensive substances, right?
No, subsistence farming in general and commercial farming.
Okay. Ma'am, in subsistence farming,
Yeah.
it is done to for their family and not for profit or
Yeah.
for money.
Yes.
But whereas in commercial farming, it's mainly done for profit and for money.
Yes.
And then intensive subsistence farming, like many crops are grown on the on land, whereas in plantation only one type of crop is grown over large area.
So child, one type, multiple cropping over the year. It's not that all the three crops are grown at the same time. So they grow a crop, they finish with it, harvest it, and then they grow a second crop. Okay. Next,
Okay.
What else?
And plantation is mostly in the mountainous areas and mostly tea, coffee, rubber, and sugarcane.
Yeah.
Whereas intensive subsistence farming can be wheat, barley, rice, etc.
It's about examples, right? So you can see these are the favorite questions. Even for CBSE, you usually get these questions, right? Any four differences between commercial or subsistence agriculture, distinguish between intensive subsistence or primitive subsistence farming. That's what Sudesh was just telling us, that we use primitive tools. In commercial agriculture, it is practicing of farming of crops for trade, but here it is to sustain the family. Here it is practiced on large farms